first answer to that need that drives men to look at porn and become addicted to porn is to know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. I mean, that is the key thing. We've got to be bold in saying to the rest of the culture that thinks that porn is perfectly fine and the media is saying that all the time. No, it's not. It is not good. It is not acceptable. It is not healthy. Turn off the porn, come up out of your parents' basement, go take a real woman out on a date and go get a job, you know? And if you do that, your life will be a lot better.
That's U.S. Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri speaking about porn. And I always have a question when I see that clip. It's like, hey, can you guys point me to where the media is saying porn is awesome? I'm dying to see who it is that's saying that in the media. but that's who Josh Hawley is. There's this just weird kind of creepy, obsessive nature about what is manhood, showing up in his little tight t-shirts, talking about what a manly man should be. He actually did a book on manhood, and this is when he was pitching that book, and this is what he had to say about, well, a lot of things. Check this one out.
Pretty secret of what the left really wants, which is they want men not to rock the boat. They're happy to write checks for men to be dependent if that means that they don't ever challenge anything. And my message is to young men especially, turn off the screen, come out of your parents' basement, maybe go ask a girl on a date, even better, get married, start a family, get a job. We need you to be a contributor in this society.
This guy really doesn't have much respect for young men, does he? He thinks all of our kids are sitting around in basements looking at porn all day. But what most disturbing on that one, too, is the left wants men to be dependent. Just absolutely delusional. But that's just what Josh does. He lives in this alternative universe. And the thing is that, not a lot of people see these kind of clips. But you did see this one. Josh is famous for what happened on January 6th when he raised his fist to the crowd and then ran. So who could forget the January 6th hearing when the whole country got to see Josh in action?
Senator Hawley's gesture riled up the crowd, and it bothered her greatly because he was doing it in a safe space, protected by the officers and the barriers. Later that day, Senator Hawley fled after those protesters he helped to rile up stormed the Capitol. See for yourself.
Yeah, nothing says manly manhood than running from the crowd that you riled up yourself. And that's Josh Hawley for you right there in a nutshell. This year he's actually got a tough, an experienced opponent, Marine veteran Lucas Kunce, who's running for the Senate for the second time. He's been on the trail across the state, is making a strong run in the race. I've had the pleasure of getting to know Lucas for the last couple of years as I live in St. Louis, and I've been eager to sit down and chat with him. I'm Fred Wellman, host of On Democracy with FP Wellman, right here in the MeidasTouch Network, and this is In the Hot Seat. Let's talk to Lucas. Man, Lucas, it is so good to connect with you again. As I mentioned in my introduction, you and I met a 3 years ago now. It's been a while. I'm real proud of the work you're doing. Semper Fi, my friend, and welcome to the MeidasTouch Network.
Yeah, Semper Fi, dude. Thanks for having me. And we're excited to be here.
Yeah. I opened with a couple of clips of Josh with his weird discussions of manhood and, of course, running from the January 6th, insurrection that he helped cause. He's really an extremist. I think he plays it well in public, but when you look at behind the scenes or the kind of appearance he does, you've almost got a candidate who's got two different faces, doesn't he?
He's a creep, right? And the good thing is that Missourians realize that. The guy's the least popular U.S. senator up for re-election this year, which, when you think about that, Ted Cruz is up for re-election, man. That's mind-blowing. Yes, absolutely. And to write a book called Manhood, The Secrets of Masculinity by Josh Hawley is it's crazy, right? And people see that and they know it's creepy. And Missourians don't want that. That's why he's the least popular guy up for re-election. What Missourians want is someone who's going to invest in the state, invest in, give us resources to make our own decisions rather than just control us. And the real creepy nature of everything he does is that he really does just want to control people to get himself some power.
Yeah, and you know everybody knows Missouri's a red state. It's hard. You've run here before. You know, people like to write us off because of you know how red it's become. There's no. I mean, there probably aren't many Democrats in statewide office. It's a challenge, you know. But you have had polls just in November. There was a poll that came out showing you're within the margin of error because he's a pauper. Why do you think this race is winnable this year for you?
You know, Missouri's a unique state where people don't identify with a party specifically. You know, the vast majority of Missourians, and we're really willing to split our tickets. You know, up until 2017, five of the six Missouri statewide offices were held by Democrats. Like that's pretty
Right.
recent, right? And our last
Yeah.
Democrat left office in 2023. And so, you know, we've had Democrats recently. The last time there was a U.S. Senate race at the same time as a presidential race was 2016. You know, Donald Trump won the state by 19 points. But Jason Kander, another veteran like me, you know, he's an Army guy, I'm a Marine guy, right? But he came within 2.5% of winning that race. And so, you know, that's 16% of Missourians switched their vote between Donald Trump and Jason Kander. And I can tell you right now, like, we're not 19 points behind anymore. We're not 16 points behind. Like, all we got to do is get the Jason Kander voters. Like, we don't have to convince people to do something that they've never done before because a lot of Missourians have voted for Democrats. So it's not as high as a hurdle as maybe it is in some states. And again, Josh Hawley is historically unpopular. When Claire McCaskill ran against a guy who was a creep in 2012, you know, our former senator, Democratic Senator Claire McCaskill, you know, she was behind the polls and then she won by, you know, double digits because Missourians don't like creeps and they don't like people who want to try to control them.
And you've got the double tap this year. I mean, I call it a double tap in the sense of we know abortion's on the ballot. Ever since Dobbs, abortion's been such a number one, reproductive rights, I should say, is the number one issue in so many states. We've been back, you know, states, Kansas, of course, voted down a attack on their abortion, reproductive rights. Ohio, we're surrounded by states that are standing up. You've got, so that's always on the ballot. It may very well be on the Missouri ballot if the initiative petition goes through and we can get it on the general ballot. But on top of that, you've got an opponent who has been toxically and aggressively pro-life, anti-choice for years. As a matter of fact, I just read an article that his fingerprints are literally on the IVF decision made in Alabama using legal arguments he used in past things. So you got an opponent who's virulently anti-choice, don't you?
And there's, you know, a lot of these Republican politicians, kind of these country club Republicans, they're all trying to run away from the choice issue, right? They're like, oh,
Right.
well, I didn't really mean that it should touch IVF or contraceptives or, you know, abortion should be okay under some circumstances. And that's not really me. Josh Hawley can't do that. Josh Hawley's family business is taking rights away from women and banning abortion. Like it's his family business. His wife works at the Alliance for Defending Freedom, they call it, which is a group that just tries to take away women's rights. Josh Hawley used to work there. You know, they led the charge in overturning Roe versus Wade. She was on the Dobbs team on the wrong side of it. She led the case to ban mifepristone, the abortion pill. And when Josh Hawley was at ADF, he wrote an article in the Springfield News Leader, a town in Missouri, in 2013, where he pioneered the legal argument that once the egg has been fertilized, it is a human being. You can't do anything with it. That is the argument that they use to overturn IVF. His fingerprints are all over it. This is his family business. It's his mission in life. And again, it's all about controlling people and taking away our ability to make decisions. And people don't like that, right? Like it's crazy, it's creepy, it's weird. And when you pair
Yeah.
that with a book called Manhood, where you tell everybody, you know, if to solve the masculinity crisis in America, men just need to be more like me, like that's not cool, man. That's terrible, and
It's
we're gonna throw him out of office on that stuff because again, people don't want to control and creep. Who only cares about being president as their U.S. senator in Missouri. And you know, I did mention resources earlier, and I want to talk about that for a minute because it's key to this race. And that's that you know, our former Republican senators, you know, they brought money back to this state. They
yeah,
invested in people here. People respected that. And Josh Hawley is proud of the fact that he hasn't brought a single dime back to this state. You know,
right.
he's the national senator from Missouri. He doesn't have to worry about that. He's not going to earmark anything. And our state's losing out on $350 million a year. And again, when the people of the state, when all we want is resources to make our own decisions, and you got a guy who takes away our resources and tries to control us so we can't make our own decisions, that's a recipe for a big victory for us. And we're really excited. I mean, and it shows in the polling.
Yeah, I just read that article. It shows that he and Eric Schmidt have been the worst senators in the country, I think, for bringing back any kind of dollars to their state, even after, of course, they both voted against the Infrastructure Act. I mean, it's just we've really got a senator here with Josh who doesn't seem very interested in his own state. We joke a lot that he's the senator from Virginia because he rarely visits the state and has dubious address here, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna hammer home all of his shortcomings, but again, it's just, what people want is they want someone who understands how the average Missourian lives. They want to understand what the struggles that people go through is like, and they want someone who, has a record of service for that. Josh has only
Yeah.
ever served himself. My background, I grew up in a working class neighborhood. My parents got married at 19 and 22. They were Catholic and they followed the rules. So we're talking kid, right? And when my littlest sister was born, she had to have open heart surgery. And when you're paycheck to paycheck, man, like that's
Yeah.
devastating. Our family went bankrupt from that. And the reason that we made it is because the people in our neighborhood who had no more money than us, I mean, this is a working
Yeah.
class paycheck to paycheck neighborhood. They passed the plate around at churches for us. They brought food by the house. They took me and my other siblings into their homes while my parents were in St. Louis a few hours away during my sister's surgery and really took care of each other. And Josh has taken away the resources that give us the ability to take care of each other like that. People don't like that. Again, we just want to be able to take care of each other and make our own decisions. Josh Hawley has no clue how we live. He has no clue that most Missourians are paycheck to paycheck. He doesn't
Yeah.
care about working people. When he was our attorney general, he led a lawsuit to make sure over 200,000 Missourians wouldn't get overtime pay anymore. Like that's what this guy does. He literally attacks working people for the corporations that funded his campaign.
I did a story a little while ago where I think 73% of Americans now support unions organized, and and especially young people support strikes. We've had some big impact here in Missouri. UAW had impact here. We just had the Teamsters strike where they won at Gray Bar. Unions are fighting back. The average Americans were, as you mentioned, banding together and organizing for better pay, better wages. Taking back what they lost before the Great Recession. Hawley's not. I mean, it's been weird. I mean, there's been some weird stuff. I mean, Hawley's showing up at the picket lines for God's sake when he's not exactly a union supporter, never has been, right?
No, I mean it's desperation. Like the
Yeah.
guy is an anti-work advocate, or I'm sorry, he's a right-to-work advocate. He's
Yep.
hated unions. That the basis of unions means we can't have right-to-work laws in this country. He wanted to take
Yeah.
away the ability to people to organize as attorney general. He led that lawsuit against working people. He recently voted against prevailing wage. He doesn't believe in public sector unions. Like he stands for nothing that unions and working people need. Like he doesn't want us to organize to have power. What he wants to use or what he wants to do is he wants to use this movement to get power for himself, especially because
Right.
it's election year. And he's seen the numbers and he's worried because he's like, oh crap, like all the people who used to support me, these country club Republicans, they all abandoned me after January 6th. I don't have a base anymore and I got to find a new one. But the guy is a fraud. He doesn't believe in any of it, obviously. I mean, again, he recently voted against prevailing wage in the CHIPS Act. You don't
Yeah.
have union wages without having prevailing wage laws. And so, again, he's in a scary spot for him. He sees, his presidential ambitions would be absolutely crushed and disappear if we win this race. And now that race that he thought was safe is in jeopardy. And so we got the earliest because of his previous actions. My campaign got the earliest AFL-CIO endorsement in the state. We have
Yeah.
even gotten endorsements from unions that traditionally endorse Republicans. The International Association of Firefighters, who endorsed
Yeah.
Republican Senator Eric Schmidt, Republican Congresswoman Ann Wagner, Mike Kehoe, Republican for governor, all these others. They
Yeah.
endorsed me because they're like, we love your record of service, 13 years in the Marine Corps, Iraq and Afghanistan. We understand the way you grew up and how that impacts our members. And Josh Hawley is a lying scumbag who doesn't care about us and doesn't believe in taking care of working people.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And that goes to their time. In the State of the Union today, President Biden went hard. I mean, well, first of all, let's just talk about how I love how he went hard. he was very direct. He's fighting. He took the gloves off, but he talked a lot about the idea that this economic disparity that we're dealing with that does lead to union organizing. The difference between the billionaires who hardly pay any taxes and average Americans who carry so much of that burden. I think you've talked about that a lot in your campaign about working Americans, average Americans, growing up paycheck to paycheck here in Missouri. That's the story of Missouri. I mean, that's something you're passionate about. I think, as you mentioned, your background as a regular person, but even still today, obviously, Josh posh Silver Spoon, Lake of the Ozarks, vacation home, isn't that kind of a guy.
I mean, what we got to do really to save the path our country's going forward on and save the middle class is we got to fundamentally change who has power in this country. And that, like, the number one way we do that is by workers having the ability to organize together and have power, because really, most of our industries and sectors they're controlled by monopolists. They're controlled by monopolists, and people don't have no power. Individuals have no power against that sort of machine. And, that's why it's important for me to go to all these strikes, to support organizing, and to make sure that we have a strong labor force. Because if we don't have organized labor, then none of us have power. And, our neighborhoods end up like the neighborhood that I grew up in. And, I talked about how great it was when I was growing up there, how everybody took care of each other and we had the resources. Well, if you go back to that neighborhood right now, the first house I lived in is an empty lot. It's been torn down. The one I joined the Marine Corps out of is boarded up to keep the squatters out. The corner store was shut down for a while because it was robbed so many times it couldn't get insurance. And that's because politicians made decisions not to invest in our neighborhoods, not to invest in working people, to do things like Josh Hawley, to conduct lawsuits to make sure that we wouldn't get overtime pay that helped us keep our neighborhoods up. That is a war on working people, and we have to be able to organize to fight back against that. And it just killed me to go to Iraq and Afghanistan and watch us spend trillions of dollars over there while my old neighborhood fell apart. I mean, that's why I'm doing this campaign, because until we change who has power in this country, I mean, the discontent and the disparity is going to continue to grow, and that's not good for anyone. It's really not.
And I think that's a message that's resonating this year. I mean, poll after poll is showing us that people realize they're seeing the disparity. They're seeing billionaires just take more and more stuff, more and more power. Jesus Christ! There's a story today, I think, that Steve Mnuchin is talking about buying TikTok. I mean, it's like it's just collecting billions of dollars and spending it and buying entire sectors of our economy. It's just terrifying. Well, I know you're a busy man. You got
towns in Missouri. There are entire towns in Missouri that don't have working water systems anymore. Like it's mind-blowing, the poverty that you see when you go around this state and the way people have been left behind.
Well, and you've got to run out there. I think too often, right? One of our Achilles heels in our party is they tend to run in the cities and ignore. I know you've been out in those places talking to people, haven't you?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, we helped a small town called Hayti Heights get a water grant because they had a water system that didn't work, and their neighboring town, who they've been buying water from, could no longer afford to maintain a system for both towns and was having to kick them off of it. It's just really sad. And it's, when you have an economy that's built around just sucking wealth out of communities and transferring it to the shareholder class, it doesn't work out. And this is the end state of that. And we don't want to find out what the next step is. We want to solve it before it gets there. And in order to do that, you have to have people who run campaigns like mine. And so, I take no corporate PAC money. I take no federal lobbyist money. I take no big fossil fuel executive money. I take no big pharma executive money, because for me, the only people I ever want to owe in this campaign are the people in that old neighborhood who took care of me and my family when we went bankrupt, right? That's how it has to be. We have to be in a position where we can represent the people of the state, the people we're supposed to represent. And if you take money from the wrong folks, you're not able to do that. You see that with people like Josh Hawley, right? And they will compromise themselves for power. They will do whatever these folks want, even if it means going after working people. And for me, that's why it was always important to run the campaign that way. When I started, everybody was like, well, you're not going to raise any money that way. One Democrat funder was like, that's stupid. I remember the quote, that's stupid. It was very clear. Like, I'm not going to work for you. And it's like, well, you know what? I think what's stupid and what doesn't work is taking that money, because then you can't do the job the way you're supposed to do it. We've raised record money since then. We raised more than Josh Hawley last year. We raised $6 million, which is more than any Democrat or Republican challenger in this state has ever raised at that point. We did it with an average donation of $30, and I'm proud of that. And that gives people around the state something to believe in. That gives people who may be voting for Republicans something to believe in, because they're so tired of the corruption and they've seen their politicians sell them out over and over again. And it gives them an opportunity and a reason to vote for somebody else.
I love it. Let's get you back out there. This has been a quick talk. That's why we call it the hot seat. So most important question of all you can ask somebody who's running for office: how can our viewers find more, find you, find your policies? And you know what? Maybe chuck you a couple bucks.
That'd be great. I mean, so our website is lucaskunce.com. It's Kunce. And, we're at Lucas Kunce Mo on Twitter, Instagram, and all the other places like that. And really, this is a grassroots campaign. It's small dollar driven. It's a beautiful thing. If you have friends or family in Missouri, please tell them, share this video with them, share some stuff. We got to spread the word around. If you don't have money, but you want to do text, postcards, whatever else, sign up to volunteer on the website. We're going to win this. We're going to win it, Grassroots, and it's going to be an incredible thing.
I love it. Well, thanks for taking time for me, Lucas. Good luck out there. Hope I bump into you in the streets here in our home state, and wish you the best, brother.
Absolutely. Thanks, Fred. Good seeing you again.
Thank you. Good seeing you again. Well, another great conversation. Lucas is fantastic. As I mentioned, I have gotten the chance to get to know him since we are both in Missouri. Matter of fact, I think one of the first meetings I had when I moved back here 2.5 years ago was meeting him and his campaign team for coffee right near where I live. He's a unique candidate in a tough race in a tough place. So really excited to see where he's going. He's learned some really good lessons. He ran against Eric Schmidt. This is his second race. I love seeing candidates run twice. And you should too, because they learn some good lessons and know how to apply them for running again. So great stuff. As I hope you enjoy the conversation. We'll have more of those to come. We call it the In the Hot Seat series with FP Wellman. As you know, I'm Frederick Paul Wellman, FP Wellman, host of On Democracy with FP Wellman, right here in the MeidasTouch Network. New shows of our podcast, our longer show, post every Friday night, 11 p.m. Eastern, right here in the MeidasTouch Network. We'll see you again. Keep up the fight. We need you.